Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to LogiSYM Asia Pacific 2021. I'm your moderator, Marcus Kraft. I'm hosting track session number 1, the Imperfect panel, Imperfect Balanced Global Assets in a Constantly Shifting Supply Chain. We will have a panel discussion led by Miklos Horvath, Director of European Freight and Logistics Leaders Forum, as well as Philip Evans, Secretary General of the European Freight and Logistics Forum. They will talking you through the next half an hour. Miklos and Philips, over to you.
Thank you, Marcus. And thank you very much to the LogiSYM team for having us on. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Yeah, my name is Philip Evans, and I'm Secretary General of FNL, or the European Freight and Logistics Leaders Forum. And I'm delighted to welcome you to this discussion, Imperfect Balance, the disruptions and volatilities in global economies and consumer demand is straining supply chains, leading to difficulties not just in the positioning of logistics assets, but also shortages and imbalances of products and materials in the global supply chain. So what might we do about this, and what might it mean for freight logistics in the future? A very quick introduction to FNL, a network of senior business leaders working across the supply chain, which is focused on freight logistics. Our aim is to learn from each other, and the FNL network fosters discussion, debate, and the support and drive towards greater sustainability across the sector. And by that, we mean environmental and economic sustainability for the benefit of all. FNL is not for profit organization and does not lobby. We're completely independent, and our network includes a wide spectrum of stakeholders, led by shippers and carriers, including technology businesses, academics, and policymakers. FNL was founded in 1994, and many of our members are global businesses. So I'm delighted that we finally, after a quarter of a century, linked up with our friends in Asia for the Asia-European dialogue. We're delighted today to have an expert panel from diverse sectors, and my thanks in advance to Devendra, Bjoern, Peter, and Marc. All their biographies are on the LogiSYM conference website if you'd like to know more about their backgrounds. I'm also delighted that my colleague Miklos Horvath will lead the panel. As well as being an entrepreneur, Miklos has been investing in logistics companies for over 20 years. And just as importantly, he's a director of FNL. So welcome everyone, and over to you, Miklos.
Thank you. I take over, and good morning, Europe, and good afternoon, Asia. It's really very exciting and to have this opportunity to talk and to come together at one platform. Unbalanced supply chain. Why we are discussing this today? Why this topic is urgent? Normally, but if there are more and more information coming up, then it's worrying. It's a problem. It definitely means that we have problems and difficulties. Nowadays, we read every day in every papers about supply chains. It means the difficulties are quite huge, and in the last 30 years, maybe we are debating about problems around the supply chains. The supply chain is not secure, that it is fragile, but very frankly, we didn't do anything. So we just made our supply chain more complex and more complex. We added actually risk, one after another layer. And now seemingly the bid is too high, and we must act. And therefore the supply chain issue and the unbalanced issue is a very urgent topic. So we are going to discuss this, and we have collected a very interesting panel for you. People, experts, leaders of supply chain and logistics from different companies and different industries. So we have, and each industry has a different supply chain, or the characteristic or the operational side of the supply chain is varying. So for the start, therefore, I ask my panelists to one by one to explain and introduce their supply chain characteristic, their setup in Europe and in Asia, and the links between the links and the operational methods of this their supply chain. I will start with Devendra, coming from Callebaut. Callebaut is for me a very exciting company, is a very sweet company for me. A lot of people doesn't know who is Callebaut. And just one figure, 2.1 million tons of chocolate. So this is what Callebaut is producing in a year. Can you imagine this volume? And after, I am sure that everybody of us is consumer of Callebaut. So thank you, Devendra. Please go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Miklos, and thanks for having me on this panel as well. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hello from Singapore. Indeed, so Barry-Callebaut is a leading manufacturer of cocoa and chocolate products globally. So we have presence in about more than 140 markets in the world. And in Asia, we are the fastest growing region within the Barry-Callebaut community. So it's indeed a pleasure to work for such a company. We are associated with food manufacturing, food ingredients, and so on. In terms of our presence here in Asia, we are present in about 20 plus markets where we have our sales offices. We have manufacturing units, production units in 12 markets in Asia. And we sell about 150,000 tons of chocolate here in Asia, and more than 100,000 tons of cocoa products also. Of that, we have a very good connection with our European colleagues, where we import about 20,000 tons of Belgian chocolate, for our consumers here in Asia. So we have a global distribution center located in Belgium, from where we import to about 10 to 12 markets here in Asia, amongst which China is the biggest importer in Asia for European products. So that's generally the overall organization of how we are set up between Europe and Asia. Europe, of course, is our leading manufacturing region with nearly 800,000 tons of chocolates that they produce over there. And therefore, they produce a lot of specialty products, a lot of premium products, which our consumers in Asia also love. So having said that, of course, we have faced multiple challenges over the past year and a half. I think, there has always been an imbalance between demand and supply, but what we are seeing is the frequency and the amplitude of these disruptions is increasing rapidly. And as you mentioned, Miklos, indeed, it is time to really rethink, take a fresh look at how we are going to address this structurally going forward.
Yes.
So indeed, we have had our fair share of challenges over the past 1.5 years.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Peter. Peter is sitting in Ingolstadt. It's a middle of southern Germany, and he represents Audi. I think I should not introduce Audi to you, and I just hand it over to Peter.
Thank you very much, and good morning and good afternoon, depends on that where you are. I would like to tell you a few words about our material flow between Asia and Europe. That's the topic of today. As Miklos said, I represent the company Audi. It's not as sweet as we have heard from the company before that, but mainly our customers does has a smile and happiness on their faces as well as they sit in our products. And we produce the most of these products in Europe and in Asia. How do we manage the material flow for all these production sites, for production facilities? We have a very active material exchange between Europe and Asia, and indeed between Northern America and Asia as well. The main flow goes from Europe to Asia still. When we look at the material, we have several packaging centers in Europe and in Mexico to prepare all our deliveries to Asia, to China, to India. And from the other side, we try to collect from Asia, from the suppliers, the different materials for the European production sites on individual transportation ways, and we get them back to Europe. Later on, we will speak about a few words how the critical situation impacts on us, and then I will tell you a few words about it, how we handle with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Our next panelist is Marc. Marc is sitting in London, and he is representing Sierra Wireless. Sierra Wireless is from the electronic industry, and it was important for me to have somebody from the electronic industry because the supply chain of the electronics is very much originated from Asia. So the main focus at the moment is for Asia is partially because of the electronics, and the company is in transmission. After some divesting business unit to Foxconn, they are on the way to be a leading IoT manufacturer and IoT service provider. And Marc, I hand it over, but I see that your micro is on or not?
Yeah. No, Miklos, thank you very much for the great introduction. Here we are, we're following chocolate and cars, high-end cars, fantastic. So we're now going to talk about connectivity and devices that go into almost any product to provide a connected service. And I'll talk a little bit more later on about how we're looking to help transform the logistics and supply chains. As Miklos said, Sierra Wireless is a global IoT device and solution provider. We are a focused company on getting the data from the assets, from the freight, from the machine, back into the application that you can then monitor what's going on with that particular asset. We do modules, which are basically the connection device that allows you to get that cellular connectivity. We do gateways. We do global IoT connectivity as well. In terms of our production facilities, they're all based in Asia. I have a large team in Asia. But as Miklos said, what we do is we put our product, in particular our modules and gateways, into other people's supply chains, into their products, to enable their products to be connected anywhere in the world that they land. So we have a perspective across a number of different industries, in particular the utilities industry with smart meters, the healthcare industry, security cameras. We were in the automotive industry as well. So we have a good understanding and insight into complex supply chains. Back to you, Miklos.
Yeah, thank you, Marc. Our last panelist, or last guest is Bjoern. Bjoern is coming from Henkel. He is sitting in Amsterdam. Henkel is a German-based company, but as I know, the European Supply Chain Center is set up in Amsterdam. And Bjoern is representing one large business unit of the company, but he will talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Miklos, for the introduction. Yeah, Henkel is a blue chip company, based in Germany, headquarters, 150 years of experience, 20 billion company, maybe in APAC, not so well known from the company, but most likely from its brand. Henkel has actually 3 businesses, still to a large extent family owned, so very diverse. We do laundry, so laundry, so everything for washing. We're number 2 or number 1 in most of our markets, and then we have a beauty. So when it comes to hairdressing and hair beauty products, the business units I'm representing is half of Henkel, which is the adhesives business. So everything which is glued, and we're serving with our 10 billion all industry. Yeah, so it goes from a wide range from consumers, so buying maybe Pritt stick or Patex or something you might are familiar, up to serving aeronautics, automotive, general industry, packaging. So it's really in any industry, at one point it comes to gluing various materials together, and then where Henkel is in the market. We're talking about 150,000 SKUs, around 150 own plants, a lot of third-party manufacturing on top, around 250 warehouses, and with a strong presence in APAC. So producing in APAC in most of the countries ourselves, but then again we still have a huge flow of from Europe, but also North America into APAC, but increasingly also exporting out of APAC. So I think we are very well hedged, but that means also we are affected of any global disruption, whether it's the Suez, whether it's the current raw material bullwhip going through the chemical industry, or whether it was COVID. So definitely we're affected of any major or minor disruption going on. So risk management is an issue, and more than happy to share a bit what we're doing in this area going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Now we rush to our next question, which is the basic question actually. Why the current, where are our pains? Where are our daily pains? Why the supply chain doesn't work well? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the shortages? Why we are not perfect? And if you talk, and one by one, if you address this topic, please also mention about your model mix. What type of transport solution you use, and maybe what as a new solution came in because of the problems, and therefore you were forced to change some way of the transportation. Thank you. I go to Devendra first.
Yeah, thanks, Miklos. In terms of the nature of the disruptions, obviously the COVID pandemic has played a big role. So, on top of already, unstable or unbalanced supply chains, what began towards January, February last year, really, and we felt the first impact in China, where due to the pandemic, we had issues around container availability. Then the port operations slowed down due to the manpower shortage as a consequence, resulting in port congestion. And then the carriers therefore had to discharge the cargo at non-designated ports. So we had to figure out how to get it back into China, into the required locations. One of our biggest customers in China, Unilever, was critically affected because of this, and we took a number of measures actually at that time. So that was just the beginning actually of what is now an ongoing story, and we activated alternate modes of transport, train shipments, even air freighting wherever required, in order to ensure that the customer lines are not impacted due to supply shortages. And then, of course, the cascading effect went on, where we saw that the prices for containers went up by 3 to 4 to 5 times over the past several months. So it was again an availability-linked issue, where the supply was much lower than the demand. The prices went up dramatically. Availability went down. Then we have had to deal with more recently the issue with respect to the Suez Canal blockage, which again is impacting availability of containers as we try to import it from Europe. So it's really been a year where we have been in a constant crisis management mode. And I would characterize it almost like the perfect storm that we have been living through.
Yeah. Maybe one lesson from what Devendra told to us, that the human element and the operational side of the supply chain, because we are very much focusing on digitalization, and we will be successful to at the end to automate or digitalize most of the part of the supply chain, but we will need the human as well, always. And if we have limits whether the human can act, then we will have problems. So we have to concentrate on the human side of the operation of the supply chain more carefully as before, because it's a new lesson. I go to Peter. Peter will please give us some fresh example about the difficulties, what we are facing. We all, not just you.
Everybody who works in the supply chain knows that we are living in an absolutely crazy world. I really cannot remember something similar in the past. It started all in February last year, as the pandemic has caused some shutdowns in China. That was the first impact on us. We thought okay, that we can handle it. A couple of weeks of shutdown in China that will not destroy, or that will not give us any really hard time. But then very soon we have remarked it that the total world has been overruled by the situation. All our supplier in Italy, in Spain, in France, we had shutdowns. And the result of that is that the supply chain is getting more empty and empty. And if you deliver and you supply material to production sites on a different continent, you have to count on your supply chain. You have to count on your pipeline, which is filled. We had a total shutdown since April last year in Mexico, and we deliver many materials for our production plants in China from the two continents, from Europe and from Northern America. So we were at a situation that more than 10,000 parts we have to control from one moment to the other. On a very closely under a very closely loop to see how far we can go with the productions. The situation started to recover a little bit in Mexico, in Europe. Then we were able to fill again into the supply chain material to the sea pipeline with air freight, but then it started with the semiconductor shortage. And if you imagine that we have to deliver just in time from Europe materials to some factories, production facilities in China, and that's not for one part, but many, many parts, it's an absolutely extreme situation, and nobody was prepared for something like this. We try to use every kind of transportation and possibilities to fill or sea freight, air freight. These are classics. Into the direction of China, the Trans-Siberian Railway. And even though we have tried now, we have had some trials by lorries, by trucks from China to Europe as well. And we are so short in our supply chain as we have never been before. Push.
Thanks, Peter. Be there, Miklos.
Thank you, Philip. We go to Marc, to the electronic industry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, fascinating hearing chocolate on air freight and cars going across the whole of Asia. That shows just how crazy the situation is. Just to echo what's been said, it is unparalleled, the disruption to supply chains. In particular, in the electronics industry, there is a massive shortage of electronic components. Everyone is now starting to realize that they need to digitize and connect their assets, whether it's a car, a street light. The demand for connected devices, memory, silicon, PCBs is just unparalleled across consumer and industrial use cases. You know, one of the challenges at the moment to get a hold of a new Xbox or PlayStation is that they are constrained. The mobile phone industry is constrained. The car industry is constrained. And this is having a massive impact on us all. And it is compounded by COVID. It's also, in the case of my company, we also had a ransomware attack about a month ago, which also impacted our production facilities. So I'm very glad to say that's all been sorted out. But these things have all come together at the same time. What is really interesting is the demand side for our product, for connected solutions, is just unbelievable. People are now, aiming off for supply constraints, so they are forward purchasing. They are buying as much of the market as possible to ensure their supply chain. So that huge demand and amount of money being put into supply chains and the amount of money being procured on the grey market for products that are hard to get hold of, that have long lead times, is just incredible. So we have never seen anything quite like this before.
Yeah.
Miklos.
Thank you. Bjoern, can you continue?
Yes. So, when hearing all this, I can only repeat that wouldn't make much value, I would say. But I think what we have observed is that this model has come to an end. Yeah. So the optimization of production footprint based on economies of scale and specialization in one places, and then taking logistic as granted, taking the flow of material even in a just-in-time approach has been granted, and if not, it has been just paid, right? But even with money, there's a limited you can do, given there's a capacity problem in freights, whether it's containers or it's airplanes. So I think if we always think about, so what kind of lesson will we learn of COVID, right? We want to see the good things about. I think this is a hard lesson, actually, but it's a lesson to mean we cannot take logistics as granted, being the one who kits the things together. So I think there will be a deep rethinking about where to produce for which area and where to source raw materials respective to that. So this progress of nearshoring of raw materials, but also, how to produce less specialized but more integrated, I think will be one of those trends we see. And definitely we are rethinking part of our value chains upstream. We are already very much, with 150 plants globally, already very much in the region for the region. But when we come to our raw materials and complex chains, we are still dependent. And yes, we're also flying our material because we have material who needs about minus 30 degrees temperature. So there's no other way. But then again, if you only produce that at one place for the world, you have to. So the question is, how do we actually get out of this? By rethinking, I would say, not the logistics piece, because that has, we can go on, but I think we have to go to the root cause of it, and this is how scattered our value chains have been set up in the aim of cost gains and specialization.
Yeah, thank you. So from this round, maybe the lesson was that the situation is really, really bad, and it will stay maybe with us. So how long it's a question, but many economists forecast that maybe we have to live with repeated shortages, and if we have to, then it will occur inflation. So there are serious impact of this situation. And if we think generally, the supply chain was always driven by purchasing, cost and purchasing, and we have to maybe change this mindset. I know that this is not easy, but the purchasing which is actually force out the design of the supply chain. The operation is another. The operation is more on the logistics side. There is if I look around here at our table, there is a very special situation I would like to aware of you. This is the situation between the automotive industry and electronics industry, because you have read a lot of the chip shortages now. It's actually relates to the same problem. That you understand, that's my understanding, that each industry owns its supply chain, and these supply chains are different. The automotive supply chain is not similar to the electronics, and therefore they don't fit together. And the problem is that on midterm, to integrate or to find a solution between these two different supply chain or industry, It will be maybe need some years. We don't know actually. There is one interesting point to that which I would like to make you aware, which can speed up the solution. If you read it last day, yesterday, Tuesday, there was an announcement. The Soletis and the Foxconn announced a strategic partnership. The Solenis is a new automotive group. If you know, it's the former Fiat, the Italian Fiat, the American Chrysler, and the French Peugeot. This is all. It is one of the largest group in the automotive industry. And when they sign an agreement with Foxconn, this means that two big giants they will definitely work on that, how their supply chains will be integrated very fast. Otherwise, this is it. I wanted to mention with that the merger and acquisition could have. It is one of the solutions. Otherwise, we have to try to collaborate, which is a different way. So our last round will be, I would like to ask the panelists that understanding and living with the difficulties, they have set up internally task force departments. If you see the new position at the corporate organization, we have transformation officer, lead of digitalization, such positions have been created. Definitely there are these departments, this group of people and experts, they have a strong agenda to carry out. And I wanted to understand from each of you what is this agenda, what you are working on, and where you hope that there will be coming out some solution for our problems. Please, Devendra, is it your? Do we need a solution or not?
Sure, Miklos. So what we have done is over the past few months, indeed worked on a few initiatives that I will briefly outline internally and externally. So talking about internally, the top 3-4 things that we have done is to try to streamline our internal processes around, for example, decision making, especially linked to spot purchases, because now the reality is that most of our contracts, transport contracts, are not honored because of the circumstances. So we have to be agile, we have to be nimble, and we have to be smart in terms of securing freight at the optimum cost and delivery, basically. So that's something that we have looked into internally. The other aspect is also to work with our transport partners to provide them visibility in terms of forecast at the lane level for them, for us to discuss about space allocations and so on. So we have put much more effort and time into this aspect of sharing this information upfront with our transport partners. The third aspect we looked into was indeed manufacturing flexibility. I think Bjoern mentioned as the era of having the low cost location or most efficient or a scale location at one place, and then that is gone. So what we have also done is looked at localization of certain products, certain key products in Asia, which we had an import from Europe as well. So while the import remains the preferred option, but we also have activated and validated a localized supply option for our customers. So those are the top three things on the internal aspects of it. Then externally speaking, we have also worked with customers. So communicating to customers as much as possible, proactively informing them about the supply related updates. So that's one aspect. We have worked with them also, for example, with Mondelez, with Unilever, with Nestle, on shared visibility across platforms, shipping, especially shipping visibility, so that they have the same information in real time that we have in terms of the shipments going to them. And also we have looked at things like working flexibly, equipment flexibility, because equipments, especially container availability, we depend a lot on reefer containers for our transport. So having that understanding and flexibility with the customers to have a little bit optionality in terms of the size of the containers, in terms of the type of the containers that we can get, is something also that we have worked closely with. So that's in a nutshell. Back to you, Miklos.
Thank you, Peter. I guess you have a huge agenda in the company.
Of course, and unfortunately, you are absolutely right. We do not believe that this situation will improve shortly and significantly. That's why we believe that we will have to still handle with this very difficult situation. And basically, I think there are three major topics which we had to change in the last time, and where we had to improve a lot our own possibility to react. First of all, decision making. How quick you make decisions, and who are all the participants for this decision. We had to achieve that we have a very good network between three different continents, of course, with the different time zones as well. And independently of that, we have to react immediately on different situations, not only different new problems occurring like at the Suez Canal we have seen, but as well if we see that some parts pop up which are absolutely short, and then we have to see how we share it between the different production facilities, and not between the two German facilities, but between the facilities all over the world. The second place, transparency and visibility. End-to-end business, so from supplier until the end of production in the different production facilities. This is one thing where we really have a very, very huge complexity. Many thousand suppliers, many 10,000 parts, and production facilities on three different continents. And this will be a future agenda for sure. So that will be something to achieve a transparency and visibility, which is so far as it's possible, it's digitalized and automatically runs. That will be our major task, because at the moment we bridge over all our weaknesses with manpower, and with a lot of work from human beings in three different continents, and just with the best digital tool with Excel many times.
Thank you.
And flexibility.
Go on.
So flexibility, we need to change. We need to have the capability to change very quickly the different transportation forms, and you know that the packaging of the automotive parts, they are very crucial to keep quality, and then to make it sure as well that these parts arrive to the destination in an absolutely number one situation. And we have to change between sea freight packaging, air freight packaging, train packaging, truck packaging very quickly, which is also not very easy. And
yeah. Oh,
back to you, Mick.
Thank you, Marc. You are working on the digital side, as I know. Your product and solution can help us, or you use your products in-house and solutions.
Definitely. So what we've seen is a massive interest in digitizing the supply chains to get much more visibility across, multimodal visibility across different types of supply chains, and across different territories. We, as I mentioned before, produce connectivity and devices. So we've actually designed a multimodal cellular satellite asset tracking solution that is low cost, that can is a series of products that can fit to different form factors, that can manage and at a more efficient and effective way can manage the complexity of monitoring these types of services in these supply chains. You know, we're seeing increased battery lives on products. We're seeing better integration and performance with cellular networks, in particular with 5G coming on, and the interoperability with satellites. Low orbit satellites coming in as a package will mean a much wider proliferation and more efficient use of satellite and cellular solutions. So small form factor, great battery life, great coverage, global coverage, so you can do multimodal land, sea, air tracking of assets. Instead of being focused on a high value product, it's moving down now to a wider freight community, so people have greater visibility. For the pain point we've seen that has been exacerbated by COVID and the global supply shortages is around visibility. Where in the supply chain are my products? What can I do to expedite them? Do I need to move them to air? Can I get them into the ports because they're stacked behind a load of different of other freight? Where are they when they're on the dock side? How can I locate them quickly? How are they performing? Are they still viable? Have they been damaged? And all those indicators, all that data that is coming off these devices is critical to making the supply and logistics more efficient. So the product we've launched is if you go on sierrawireless.com, the product is called AccuLink, which is a global logistics and supply chain tracking solution. Thanks.
Thank you, Marc. Bjoern,
Yes, I think we are running out of time here. So, but maybe just one sentence. So I think we have proven in our company to be good in crisis management. Yeah. So in terms of pulling people together, getting heads on, ahead of the curve, doing whatever can be done. But I think, especially my role as a global head of supply chain, we are now understood we need to get even further ahead of the crowd. And that means we are investing heavily in risk management capabilities, exploring that we not only use our own data, let's say including forecasts for our customers, but we need to see earlier what's going to happen and also see our risk areas more clearly, the bottlenecks in our supply chains, and our ambition is to move further in the tier 1, tier 2. So I think that's the only way to get ahead of it and be better prepared for whatever comes, and it won't stop. That's for sure. It will just continue in a similar mode. So better get ready to build up risk management capabilities.
Finally, I thank to all of my partners here. Maybe to round up the whole, we have heard, which is interesting, faster decision making. It's really interesting to hear. The second is the visibility. Related to visibility, we don't have time, but it could be interesting to talk about data quality, because I think the next step will be after the digitalization, how we can clean the data, which is not good. And it was interesting to change and jump between the transport modes and change the packaging in a fast way. These are the interesting points for me. And thank you very much for being with us. And I hope that our session was interesting. And if you want to continue with us, we are happy. Send us questions, and we are happy to answer. And if you are interested for Europe more, then we can discuss. You can discuss with F&L. Our business club is still open to discuss options of membership. Maybe it's interesting for some of the Asian companies who are present in Europe. Thank you very much for the session, and thank you for all of you who were with me.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Miklos, for running the show. Philip, Devendra, Peter, Marc, thank you again for the lively discussion. we're coming also to the end of the day. Yeah, it's 5 p.m., shortly after 5 in Singapore. We're closing the call for today. Any questions we will address offline. I really appreciate, again, the technical and also the actual topics we discussed. To the audience, please dial in tomorrow again. The first session starts at 9 a.m. And we're looking forward to continue these dialogues over the next 2 days. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Devendra, and everybody for this session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.